Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report number 2, February 10th, 2022. Actually, 2023. Geez, I did it again over there. I tell you, can't find a good secretary anywhere nowadays, but we're here. Excited. Andrew McGinnis on earlier, and now we're following up with Tyler Wyatt making his ECSI debut. Another one of the real guys in our lanes. Been following him for a while on Twitter now. Had him on when I was co-hosting with Anthony Pepe on Friday night a few weeks ago on Sports Map Radio on the Diehards. And we look to connect here just to talk a little Super Bowl. I wanted to talk about what's going on in the SEC maybe. Tyler has a poker background. I'm a huge poker guy. One of our 3 TVs in our viewing stage always has poker go on, whether it's 2003 and Moneymaker or the live games going on right now. But again, one of the genuine guys, one of the guys that does this for a living, one of the guys that eats, sleeps, drinks numbers like we do. And we're blessed and honored to have him on. So without further ado, let's bring him on, the one and only Mr. Tyler Wyatt. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you? You mentioned Moneymaker in 03. That was well, the statute of limitations is up on that. I had a couple of poker games in downtown. Chris cut his teeth on before winning that $40 seat into the world. Still talk to him, and we're in the same fantasy football league. He's got a really good thing going. Moneymaker Social Club in Kentucky. I go up there and play quite a bit. But yeah, cards, but obviously sports betting is what we'll focus on today.
Well, I'm going to just follow up on that. Did the poker kind of add to, hey, I'm a numbers guy. I love poker. I play poker. Does that kind of go hand in hand with the mentality and the thinking into the live sports betting?
Yeah, you have to be able to make, you're doing a lot of math. Poker, certainly there's a lot of there's a lot of psychology and a lot, but if you're a good poker player, percentages, all kinds of stuff, especially where I cut my teeth in high-low games, stud specifically, folded, big part of that. Hold'em now is the game that everybody wants to talk about. It's the game that seems I'm a PLO 7-card high-low, if I could choose those games. But yeah, I think you can take certain things from poker and apply, like you said, to in-game betting, to be able to watch a game, obviously in the video, but you can watch a live feed and you can make decisions, I think based on some numbers and stuff like you would playing in a poker game. So yeah, I think there are a lot of things, a lot of similarities certainly between poker and between sports betting.
You have the Circa Sports hat on, the Mecca, what I like to call it.
That too. Wear that hat.
So maybe we should call Jeffrey Benson, maybe Matt Metcalf, maybe Derek Stevens. Hey, guys, we're here if you want to sponsor us. Maybe we'll get a cabana for March Madness and the Masters. How's that sound?
We'll definitely have a cabana for March Madness.
Big weekend, obviously. It's the Super Bowl. 2 teams. Let's talk about the Circa. 2 weeks ago, Sunday, Kansas City beat Cincinnati. Before they released their numbers, they're in the risk room. And the Circa opens up Kansas City -2.5. And their first 25 bets, 22 of them all came in Philly, said not so fast. And now it was Philly -2.5. at one point, down to 2, 1.5 across the Vegas Strip. At South Point right now, good friends of ours, Chris Andrews, Jimmy Vaccaro, holding at 2. Surprised with the opening number to start. The public remembers what they saw last, a mash unit from Kansas City, losing all their wide receivers, a few defensive guys. People remember Philadelphia, 38-7, 31-7. Surprised with the opening number.
I was surprised, actually, relative to the number that we made. I was extremely surprised. We were one of those 22. I sent Benson a message after we took it. I said, I'm glad your limits, or you should be glad your limits are low right now, because you would have taken there's no telling how much action, at least from a monetary standpoint, that they would have taken. I'll probably look to play back on some of the other side. I do have some Kansas City +2 now. A lot. I think new bettors specifically look at the Super Bowl and think that they have to bet this. They have to bet more money on the Super Bowl because it's a big game. I look at this as any other Sunday NFL game. If there's value relative to what I think the number should be, or however you rationalize it, it's important to look at this game as any other football game. If you want to bet more on it because it's the Super Bowl, it's a terrible way to approach sports betting in general. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have variance in your sports bets, that half unit or unit or 2 units isn't a bad way to go about it. I just see too many people go in and want to bet 10 times or 20x on the Super Bowl because it's a big game. And that erases maybe an entire playoff of profitable betting because you wanted to bet a lot on the big game. We took the other side of that. I thought Kansas City should have been about a half-point favorite in our numbers anyway. So we played them Philly plus the 2.5 and have bought some back on the other side. But I think it's a credit to Circa and what they're doing. They're not afraid to take risk, and they're not afraid to take action. Certainly, they were the first to put out a number, and it was off market. They adjusted relatively quickly. I mean, it was up for a couple of minutes, and it was adjusted again, I think, in 15, 20 minutes, and they found at least the early part of where that number maybe should be. But credit to them for putting a number out there and taking a much larger limit than most, at least all of the U.S. regulated markets. Certainly, there were some offshore that were taking big bets on the early number, but they weren't at 2.5 on Kansas City. So it's, I appreciate Jeff and the entire team there for putting that number out and taking action. I'm happy to be one of the 22 that sniped that one.
Well, I've been talking about this, and I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if it was this year or last year. I think it was this year. I'm going to say it's the same thought process I have. Alabama was hosting Ole Miss, and they opened up Alabama -20, and Twitter blew up like, what are you guys doing? Ole Miss was like the flavor of the last couple of weeks. They're not going to just come into Alabama. They're going to potentially beat Alabama outright. And I think the actual number that was opened up might have been around 14.5, 15. They took the action early at 20. They did correct it. I think it might have closed around 15, 15.5, whatever. Alabama won by 21. And I just couldn't tweet those guys fast enough and say, guys, sticking with your numbers. God bless you guys.
Yeah, so I use Circa's opener, obviously, because they're first, certainly in the U.S., I think they're first worldwide, at least when they put those numbers out for the following week. But Sundays, you can go back and look every Sunday during the season. I include Circa's opener with where I make the number and where I make a total. One, because I think they're the sharpest sports book in the U.S., and they're not afraid to take early action. They admit when they make a bad number. A lot of books, don't want to talk about being wrong. I think Jeff has been really he's been really open when they put a number out. When it doesn't matter who it is, what sport it is. It could be golf, NASCAR, whatever. If they screw up, they own up to it. They say we own a bad number. Oh well, we'll get it back on another game. You mentioned that one. Yeah, they were dead on the 20. That was one of those. And I would have to go back and check Jeff's timeline. I don't think there was any chest thumping of, where are all the Twitter trolls saying that 20 was dead nuts. It's only when they're off and that they're made to look like a fool where the guys come out and want to talk all the smack. They don't come out and say, "Wow, you guys hung a number that was way off market and you were freaking perfect." So yeah, I use Circa's openers for a lot that I do. I think if I can beat Circa's openers in the long run, I'll be ahead. If you can beat their closing numbers, I think obviously you're probably ahead. I think they take more sharp action than anybody in the U.S. It's certainly in Nevada. But yeah, I think we need to point out when those guys, when the books are right, I think they need a little more attention. It's always when they're wrong is when everyone wants to come out.
I'm so glad that you're saying this because there's not a lot of people that are saying exactly what you're saying. You get caught up in the Twitter drama, and there's a lot of books that want to come after Jeff, and Jeff's great at volleying and serving and stirring up the pot because, again, if anyone watching and listening right now have not been to Fremont Street and not been to the Circa, obviously I call it the Mecca. It is like you died and went to heaven, and the staff there and everyone there, it's just, I can't say enough good about it. Being a professional, obviously we talk about shopping around and you have numerous and various outlets. You're talking about Sunday mornings as everyone's getting ready for the NFL. These guys are opening up the following Saturdays college numbers to the so-called shops. You have your window, you have your 2-dime, 2,500, whatever the limit is. You guys are setting the market. Can you explain the newbies here, the people that don't understand that? You're talking about your numbers, and now they're opening up their playbook to you, and you're telling them what your numbers are, and you're setting the market for those guys for late Sunday night or Monday morning.
Yeah. The way you come about, whether you're an originator, whether you're a recreational bettor, I think it's important. Anyone that ever asked me for advice, anyone that has ever asked if there's one thing you could give me, what would it be? It should always be to have an idea of what the line should be on a game. If you're thinking of whether it's the Super Bowl or whatever, you should be able to, if you're in this space in any type of serious regard, you should be able to come up with a number yourself and then see where it opens. And you have an idea there. The way that I approach it, if my number is close to what their number is, it's just not a play for me. If their number is off, I take a position. It may not be a position that I'm in for the entire week. I may look to exit it. I may look to try to middle it, depending on if there's a ton of movement the other way. If I'm wrong, and it moves a couple of points against me, there are times where I've just bitten the bullet and said I need to be out. I'm probably on the wrong side of this. There's no value. I think taking an approach in the way that I do, it's very similar to I don't want to say it's similar to the stock market, but I'm not afraid to take a position on a busy Saturday where there are 60 games, not counting FCS. I may take a position in 24 sides and 30 totals. And at the end of the week, it might be half of that I have, where I actually have a decent stance on a game. And the other ones I may, there's been totals that have moved 7 and 8 points, and I'll buy back on the other side and try to middle it. We could talk at length about that strategy and what your win rate has to be to make money long term and those types of things. I guess I'm saying is you should, whether you're a day-to-day guy that bets 1 or 2 games or a guy that wants to pursue it long term, you need to figure out a way to come up with lines on your own, whether you listen to them and make positions or make bets based off of them, or just for education. If you can make those numbers and see where it'll help you a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road immensely. So the way I approach it is Circa's the first. I also think they're the sharpest. I base my numbers off of where, or I take a position based off where their number is in relation to my number. they get action from the jump, and then the rest of the market seems to just copy and paste a lot, which is unfortunate. And then you go shopping, and then it's a shopping spree. It's what, whether there's a 6-108 or a 6-115 out there, at that point you just go and you kind of, the rest of the week is pretty boring. You're staring at an odd screen, you're watching for, or you're trying to listen for any news, injuries, and all the things that go with, where the number changes. Obviously, where the money comes in the market will dictate, a lot of where that movement comes from. But yeah, I think betting early is extremely important to long-term success in sports betting. And then betting late, there's also, I think, some value because you gain a lot of information during the 6 days that lead up to, that Friday night before the Saturday kickoff in college.
Before we get into the game here, I guess the last question that I would have is you're talking position. So in other words, the line came out at 2.5. You had Kansas City at half. You're in on Philly at 2.5, plus 2.5, and the number has come all the way now to, if you were at South Point right now, you could go and get Kansas City plus 2, and you'd be sitting there whistling Dixie. When you have a side that you really like and you got in early and the numbers moving in your favor, maybe you go back once or twice. But are you also in the end game as well to, hey, I got an opportunity here to really, make a score, or you're set once the ball's up in the air?
If I think, I stick with the number that I have pretty much to a T. Once the game, I don't look to exit a lot in game, just because I think that adds too much variance to the long-term success. I think, and I can go the last couple of years, I've been able to, CLV on Circus openers for me has been about 3 or 3.5% for most of the last couple of years. That's a number that I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with where they set the price and its accuracy. So yeah, I don't look to exit in game. The only positions that I would take in game are if there's a big middle. If I total opened at 48 and I had projected 51.5, and they jump out to a it's 17-10 first quarter and the live number might be 58. I may play back on the 48 and have, if I can have a 9 or 10 point middle or something like that. But it wouldn't be for the same position that I had going into the game. It would be for probably 2 or 3 points, 20 or 30% maybe of the original stake. But not a lot of that. Yeah. Once it's, especially in a game where I think my number is right, I stick to my guns there.
A lot of people watching and listening. We can't thank you enough here. Let's talk about the big game, how you approach. Maybe you could throw out a couple. I mean, Westgate's got 400 props. I mean, each book's different. There's a million props. You got Gatorade, National Anthem. We had Crack on yesterday, and we were talking behind the scenes off stage before we went live. He was just throwing out some crazy, crazy props. Do you have a Sunday Super Bowl prop list that's just, as I like to say, pizza and beer money, just the shits and giggles? Or is this something that fine tooth and comb, where are they making a mistake? And you really looking for that 1, 2, 3% edge that you're hoping that you're getting throughout the year?
Personally, I don't think I have an edge betting props. I think I'm down a couple units for the season on props. I do enjoy playing them because, I think it makes the entertainment part of the, experience of watching a football game. It brings a little value there to me. But I don't think I have a considerable edge. This week you could listen to 1,000 shows and someone's going to give you, you're going to hear probably 10 or 12 different guys that they think is, one thinks there's value on scoring a touchdown. I don't put a lot of time or effort into player props because I just haven't found that I have an edge. So I've stuck with, things that I think that I am good at. There are a couple, I think betting the coin toss is just, it's one of those things you do just because it's the Super Bowl. It's not for any considerable amount of, certainly, like you said, it's pizza, beer, and drinking money, golden tee money, or whatever. Outside of betting the coin toss, I'll bet probably over for the national anthem just to have a little itch there. I've heard a lot of Boston Scott over rushing yards from some pretty sharp guys. If I have any considerable stake in player props, it'll be because I'm tailing some guys that I think are smart in there. I just don't think I have an edge long term in it.
You brought up golden tea. I'm throwing out the olive branch in our studio. In our studio, we have golden tea in one corner. I have NFL Blitz in the other corner. So when you get down to Cape Cod, at some point, make sure you look us up. NBA Jams is on the way as well. So you will have the arcade covered for you on that end too.
I'll be up there in May, actually, for a festival. So we're definitely going to hook up, and I'll get by the studio in May.
All right. We talked Kentucky basketball. We talked SEC. I've been doing a lot of homework and research on Coach Cal and this team here because the number is so big right now, and I'm just trying to get behind them. And I just don't like what I see. They just can't throw it in the ocean, it seems at times. I think they're a good squad. I love Tennessee in the SEC, and Alabama live and die by the three. I tell you, come tournament time, if they get hot for those 8 games, there's no team on the planet that can beat them. I have 2 daughters. One graduated from UConn. One's a freshman at UConn, season ticket holder, even though it's a 2.5-hour drive. We beat Alabama by 13 or 14 earlier this year. Can you give us any insight on some Kentucky hoops, some SEC basketball, what you're seeing outside looking in?
Well, and if you have a Kentucky, I would go ahead and use that as scratch paper to write on, because I don't think it's going to be turned back in. Most of my time I spend in Knoxville. The other night after the Vandy game, Vol Twitter there was a lot of fire Rick. There's always it seems like it's press the panic button when Tennessee loses, especially in football. But yeah, Tennessee basketball, good solid team. That was a bad loss in Vandy, 9.5-point dog. I thought that was too many points. Alabama, they have to get past Missouri tomorrow. That number will come out here. I made Tennessee 8.5. So it'll be interesting to see, where the market opens there.
Ken Palm's got it at 13, 79.66.
So 145 projected for Ken. Missouri can score. Missouri can't stop anyone. Tennessee has struggled to score. So if that total opens north of 140, I think I might play that under. So Ken's a little off from where I have mine, a couple of points. It's a Missouri team that's really, really good offensively. Kobe Brown, really, really good. Tennessee had Josiah Jordan-James go out with an ankle injury, hearing that he's not going to play tomorrow. Hearing that could lead into the Alabama game. So that's a big loss defensively there. Tennessee's not a team that can score right now. If they could improve their offense, their defense is as good as I've seen in college basketball in recent memory. Remind me of some of those Virginia teams 4, 5, 6 years ago. They can lock down anyone on defense. Alabama coming to town, that game I made out. I got Tennessee 1.5 rounded and 149 total projected rounded. So big next couple of games. Tennessee goes to Alabama, so they have Missouri, Alabama, and then Kentucky coming off of what was a bad loss to Vanderbilt and a couple of losses in their last 3 games. The Vols need to figure it out. No, they need to get a win tomorrow against Missouri, or this could be a team that's staring a 4 seed or something coming into March and into March Madness, where they were, trying to make a case to be a 1 seed 2 weeks ago. Kentucky, a lot of problems right now. Oscar Tshiebwe seems to be the only guy that gives 100% all the time. Xavier Wheeler missing that game the other night was big, but Arkansas, that was a game that Arkansas really, from about the second media timeout on, controlled that game. I didn't really – I played against Kentucky there. I thought that number was off. I had that that one closer to a pick than 5.5. I had Kentucky, I think, one and change rounded. But it's a Kentucky team that they can't afford to slip up against an athletic team in Georgia tomorrow. Obviously, they have Tennessee next week. They can't afford any more losses, I think, in the regular season. If they fumble, if they slip up 2 times coming down the stretch in the regular season, it'll probably take a semifinal appearance in the SEC tournament or maybe a championship appearance for them to guarantee themselves a ticket into March. If they were to mess around and lose to Tennessee, I believe they have Auburn still left on the schedule. You're talking about a top 5 recruiting class again for Coach Cal missing an NCAA tournament. Not going to sit well with Kentucky fans with a potential number 1 overall class coming in next year. I'm not sold on Kentucky. You mentioned Connecticut. I doubled down on a Connecticut future preseason just a little. I doubled down, and they proceeded to go on that what was the losing streak, 6 of 7 or 7 of 8 or whatever it was. I still like Connecticut. I think they can figure some things out. A really, really, really tough team defensively. Do you remember a college basketball season as wide open as it is this year? I had a conversation 2 days ago, or maybe it was in Vegas, with a guy, and I said, most years you would take someone offering you can handpick 4 teams, you can handpick 6 teams, and I'll take the field, and you would feel pretty comfortable about the 4 or 6 that you pick. I don't know that I could pick 8 or 10 teams this year and feel that I actually had the best of it. I mean, I would take 8 teams against the field, but this year it seems as wide open as I remember.
I can't remember a year. And like you said, the Zags had a couple years where, they're the number 1 seed. Everyone knows they're not going to win it. Well, and then you have your dominant teams. Baylor had a couple little runs. And then, the ACC's been down now for a while. But then in comes Carolina with a big run last year. Kansas. The Big 12, everyone's touting the Big 12. That's the conference. I'm not saying top to bottom that the Big 12 isn't the conference. But as you said, I was on a show earlier this week, and someone's asking me, hey, can you give me a couple, outside looking ins? And I said, you know what? Arkansas last year made a run to the Elite 8. They lose to Duke. And then I watched their second half performance against Kentucky this past week. I said, love the coach. I love him come tourney time. I think they're battle tested, and you could have got them at 30, 35 to 1. The UConn team, I said on our show, 14-0, number 2 in the country. And I'm like, Coach Hurley's got to be like scratching his head. They were months ahead of schedule. There was no way in holy hell if you pulled Coach Hurley aside and said, Coach, he would have said, no, I didn't expect this. So those bumps I saw coming. The real UConn team showed up on Wednesday, I think it was, against Marquette, 17-4, 24-8. Thanks for playing. They got Creighton tomorrow. Creighton's a 1-point favorite, I think. First time UConn's been a dog in a long, long time. To me, that's a UConn number, not a Creighton number, the way Creighton's been playing.
Oh, yeah, I agree. There's 18-1, 16-1 floating around right now on UConn. I mean, after you get past Houston, Purdue, Arizona, Tennessee are all 10, 12-1. You mentioned Kansas, Gonzaga, 18, Baylor 20-1, Texas 20-1. I mean, you don't have to go more than 10 teams down the list, and you're into the 20 and 25-1 range, where in most years, the first 8 or 10 teams are normally somewhere between – you always have a 4 or 5-1 favorite and then a log jam of teams, between that 6 and 12-1 range. it's a crapshoot this year. Which I mean, I'm as a basketball fan, I think it's going to make for an exciting March Madness for someone that's trying to make money on futures investments and make money on a day in and day out of college basketball. It makes you age about 3 years for every one basketball season, it seems like. But, if I had my choices, I think I would rather it be like this than the same 4 or 5 teams every year that make a run. And, I am a fan of parity, so I guess I can't complain.
Before we wrap this up, you talked about baseball and baseball totals. It's a great year to be a baseball fan. The World Baseball Classic will be in the spring, along with spring training. My Boston Red Sox, I think they're under overs like 74.5. At least we signed Devers. We let Bogarts walk. Outside, we got a lot of time to get there. I hope to have you on a lot more as we get closer to the start of baseball and during the baseball season itself. Is there any teams, futures, a little under overs already that you've jumped in, or is it too early for your liking right now?
Yes, and over that number, I thought I had them projected 82 wins, so I thought there was value there. It's the usual suspects at the top: Houston, New York, the Mets. Padres, I have a future on. Got them at 11 plus 1150. Dodgers are always a team, I think, that are going to be in the conversation. But Red Sox, it's going to be I spent some time in Boston when I graduated high school. I spent a year there, actually, with a friend of mine, Kevin Rubel, working on actually a golf company, golfbenefits.com. So I learned to appreciate I grew up in Missouri. I grew up in Tennessee most of my life, at least going into college. So those Cardinals and Braves were the teams that I pulled for. After spending about 9 months in Boston, I was sold on the Red Sox. I was always anti-Yankees. I was always anti-Cubs. But spending time in Boston, you learn to love the Red Sox. You either learn to love them or you learn to hate them. So I don't want to say closet Red Sox fan. I'm not I don't have a team that that I'm going to watch day in and day out. I'm going to live and die by the wins and losses. But if I had to pick a team to pull for, it would be the Red Sox. Going to be a rough year for us this year, but I do think the season win total was, I think, absurdly low. They're going to struggle, but I think this is a team that can get too close to 500. I think pretty easily.
Last question. The Braves I don't know what they have in the water. They don't rebuild, they reload, it seems, and their youth is amazing. They have the magic potion to sign these guys to these long terms at pretty cheap value outside looking in. People are scratching their heads. I was on a phone call with a colleague today talking about Mr. Strider himself coming off an injury, only had 130 innings last year. Just electric. I mean, the ball just pops out of his hands. My greatest all-time feat, my favorite of all time, is Pedro Martinez. The world stopped when he was on the mound. Now, I'm not comparing him to Pedro, but the ball just pops. And my question to you, Braves, I mean, the NL East is amazing this year. Again, you got Braves, you got the Phillies who made it to the World Series. Obviously, you got the Mets with a pitching staff second to none with Verlander, Max, and a few other cast of characters. If I had to ask you today who wins the NL East, what would you say today?
I don't have enough confidence in the Braves. I guess I have to go Mets.
Okay.
Easy pick. Is that cherry pick?
I mean, when you're wheeling out 2 Hall of Famers, as long as they stay healthy, I mean, that's a tough doubleheader to face Max and then Justin in a 1-2 punch. But we'll see. I'd be pulling for you, and on the Super Bowl. It'll be interesting to see, if that one happens to land like smack dab on one, the old 24-23 final. It'll be interesting to see the remarks from Circa and a few other of these places. If it is a 1-point game, Kansas City finds a way to win. We are, again, can't thank you enough for coming on. I enjoy following you. I know you're big fans of BVB with Dave and Matt. Good people here. And again, when you come to Massachusetts, obviously make sure you reach out. We'll come grab you, play some video games, little lobster rolls and steamers and all that good stuff back here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to take Edlow out and get him out of the house. He's on double whatever baby count he's up to now. But yeah, I'll be up there. Yeah, I'll be up there in May. So we'll definitely hook up. I'll be up there for a week. So yeah, we'll do it right for sure.
The one and only Tyler Wyatt at BetSmart US. If you're not following, please follow him, especially if you're serious in these lanes and spaces. Great work as always. Myself at EC Sports Invest. If you're not following me, just jumped on from Tyler. Come follow me. We'll follow you back. Later, or actually in about 15 minutes, we're going to bring on Zaid Hussein. We're going to talk some UFC, big card coming up this weekend. So everyone, please stay tuned.